Talk with me, Ramiz. I contemplated your question since we last spoke a couple of times and spoke with it with some friends and my wife. And I find it really interesting and somewhat puzzling that it appeared to me that the investment in the story of potential suffering is huge for some people. I explained to I told my wife and these friends that were here that I didn't have a fear of death. I wasn't. Oh, when I think about it, it's just a concept. It can't be more than a concept. And my wife pointed out that she sat with her sister as she was dying. Well, two sisters actually, but as she sat with them and observed their suffering, that she was very really invested in not suffering herself like that. And I couldn't get through to her that she has no idea about how she's going to die and how much suffering. So why consider it as if it were going to be there for sure? And she just couldn't get it. I'm interested in your thoughts since we spoke about it last time. What have you noticed any change in yourself about that?
It was very tough. I was supposed to go somewhere to travel, and when I woke up, I kept having these images about my old friend who died years ago and his accident. He died from a train accident.
Mhm. Was it
In
instant or
the
did he suffer?
He
Or really,
suffered.
he was in pain, or not suffering, he was in pain.
I I don't want to speak about the details because it was horrifying from what I heard, and I felt like my body was frozen and I couldn't really move. And I fell asleep. I fell asleep and I woke up again and I fell asleep again. I was sleeping most of the day. And then I was sitting by myself for a while, and a huge wave of sadness and was so strong.
Was it pure sadness, or was it grief that you experienced, that wave? Were there were there stories about how it shouldn't have happened and should have been different and why, those kind of things? Were they present?
Not about the accident. It was different stories. It, but what I noticed, I felt it's like my mind was trying to relive his experience. Like I wanted to know how he felt.
Hmm.
And today was like the closest I got to imagine it. And I felt kind of guilt that he has to go through this and I didn't. And it occurs to me that in the dream when I was trying to hug him, I was almost trying to apologize to him that because I can't fully experience what he went through.
Is there part of you? This might sound a bit weird, but is there part of you that feels that there is some virtue in experiencing the suffering of the whole world, of everybody in the world?
It's not clear at a superficial level, no.
So, what do you imagine was behind the inclination to experience what your friend experienced as he died?
Because I imagine it to be a very lonely experience.
Long, did you say? Or lonely?
Yeah,
Long.
lonely.
So, but he's gone now, so you can't change his experience regardless. But somehow, by you experiencing or attempting to experience what he experienced, that gives you a sense of being closer, a sense of connection to him.
Maybe.
Have you got any thoughts about what else may have been behind wanting to do that?
It's I don't know.
Mm. Do
Maybe
you,
kind of anticipation or um, kind of control, maybe. I'm not sure because the accident is in nature all of a sudden. Like you can't anticipate the accident.
mm, mm.
And
Is it different, say, when your grandmother had that bad leg and mm, you were experiencing her pain, or at least you were experiencing her with pain at that time. Is that different? Was there part of you that wanted to experience what she was experiencing?
I didn't think about it, but now that you're asking, I think maybe I did, but it wasn't clear. I guess it was different in the sense that it was happening and I wanted her pain to stop. There was kind of a hope things could be different, things can change.
Was there part of you that thought or that felt that if you had the right experience, that would change their experience, her experience?
Yeah, there's some aspect of that, and it's like replaying a movie or something or a video, seeing again and again to see something that you might missed or something.
Mm, mm. So in both cases, in the case of your grandmother and in the case of your friend, you did experience your own version of whether it was pain or suffering, I don't know, but you did experience your own version of that, didn't you? Your
To some degree.
attempts to understand. Yeah. It's almost like the mirror neurons in your brain are overactive. You experience whatever you come into contact with, but in particular the pain and suffering of those around you, of the world in general, even. Do you get overwhelmed with a sense of remorse or guilt or something when you consider what the people in Gaza are going through now?
when it comes to the world as a large, I mostly experience a response of anger.
It kind of could seem obvious what the anger is about, and the anger would be saying it's wrong, would it not? Something like that.
It it's like it doesn't have to be this way.
Mm, mm, right. Would you even go as far as to say that it's unfair that it is that way? Is that a word that works for you? Unfair?
Yeah,
Can you see? Can you see that this is guilt? That this is grief. Grief is sadness with all of those stories attached to it about how it doesn't need to be this way, how it could be different, could be better. This is grief, and the anger is kind of easier to live with than the grief. The anger gives you a kind of sense of power, even though it's futile, even though you're not going to be able to change it for anybody or anything. The anger still has a sense of it should be different.
it feels different for me.
Yeah.
I
Can
feel
you?
like
Yep.
the sadness and grief are more my go-to than anger.
Mm,
Anger feels too demanding of energy,
yeah, yeah.
and I have a lot of justifications not to feel the anger.
Mm. But is that justification your society, your cultural conditioning?
The anger is about it would be helpless, it would be useless. Uh, it's exhausting, painful.
Hmm. Yeah, so it generates its own suffering, even if it comes out of others' suffering. It generates its own personal suffering for you. So therefore, it's better that you don't experience anger. So you're back to the pain and suffering of grief and guilt. That's an interesting one. That guilt that's there. It's almost as if you experience, others don't have to. Does that fit?
No, sometimes it's the opposite. Sometimes I wish people to suffer.
Oh, okay. Where does that come from? Is that a
When
sense of justice?
when the suffering feels lonely, when it's like nobody else can feel this.
Right.
it's when I wish them to experience it.
Mm. Would you go as far as to say that's a wanting connection? It's like with your grandmother and your friend, there is an offering of connection, and with this one, there is a wanting for connection. This is just my story. I don't know how accurate does that seem to you? Does it feel, what does it feel like? What does your intuition say?
Yeah, it's this wanting people to suffer is a recent discovery.
Mm. Do you experience that without feeling guilty, without feeling bad about it? You're not actually causing any suffering, so there's no reason to feel guilty in that way. But just the desire, does that make you feel bad about it? Or do you just accept that as something that turned up?
It feels like when you are suffering and someone who supposed to care about you looks away and you expect them to be with you.
Does that make you feel abandoned? Or just alone?
Yeah, it's the same.
So am I just imagining, or am I detecting that there's a theme here of you aching for connection with everybody?
I'm I'm scared that it's too much
Say more? Too much?
to be with.
What is the desire, the aching for it is too much, or the actual connection is too much?
The connection.
Hmm. And that's too much for you or too much for them?
For them, or what seems to be them.
Mhm. So, how do you respond to what appears as too big a demand on them? How do you respond in yourself to that? So you don't do anything about having a connection because you fear it's going to be too demanding? Is that when you say too much, is it too demanding? Or you're asking too much?
Sometimes
Yeah.
it depends about the person. In general, it's difficult to demand, but if it's possible, I would still feel resistance. And
Is it different with those what you said before, those who are supposed to care for you? Presumably your mother and your family, maybe? Is it different for them, the demand and how you respond to that, than it is with other people that you know? And does it exist for people that you don't know, strangers, or just acquaintances? But there, the question about for people who are supposed to care, is that different?
I don't think it's a failure of caring.
Mm.
It's maybe this is just my mind interpretation. It's more about having the capacity or the skill or the willingness or
Mm. So it's almost like they could if they wanted to, but they don't want to if it's not there. I'm thinking of your father in particular now. And this doesn't have to be present, it could be past as well. Almost certainly is past as well.
when I told my friend about the memory with my father, um, and she asked me if I could imagine him giving me what I want, like being kind to me, or
Yeah.
and I said no. And what I realized that I couldn't even think of that before.
Mm.
I
Mm.
couldn't. It didn't come to my mind that this is something that was possible even.
Mm. So he didn't have the capacity. It wasn't the willingness that was the issue, it was the capacity.
I don't know. And I remembered, I think I was feeling nausea, and I remembered when I get car sickness, I would vomit as a child. And I remember my cousin, she would hold her hand like on my heart while vomiting. And it felt like it was like the most moment in my childhood where I felt supported.
Mm, mm. Did that, did that, did any, was that, did that nausea or any element of that nausea return when you were trying to imagine whether your father could give you that?
Some to some degree. I'm not sure if it's related.
No, just that it came up together. That's all. Yeah, yeah. And it's interesting that you said that your cousin that you felt supported, and I would suspect that that feeling supported is what's missing. You never felt
It's more
supported.
like it was more like attention that wasn't I didn't ask for, and I didn't know that I even needed it. Like when she was holding her hand, I didn't know that I needed her hand until I experienced the vomiting without her hand, and I felt the absence of her hand.
Hmm. Mm.
It was like, how could she know that her hand would make a difference?
Mm. And her hand on your heart as well. There, not on your shoulder, not on the back of your neck, but on your heart. Yeah. Maybe she knew. Maybe she didn't couldn't describe it, but she knew in the same way that you experience you're wanting to experience other people's suffering. Maybe it's the same thing. You know, that knowing that something was coming from a level beneath what could be described. I mean, she wouldn't have even thought about it, would she? She just put her hand there. She didn't think, oh, I'll put it on his heart. She just put it there. would it be accurate to say that you never ever in your whole life felt that same feeling of support from your father?
It didn't feel, even when he tried, it didn't feel real.
Mm. And do you think it was capacity or willingness that was missing from your father?
I assume it was disconnection from his own feelings.
So capacity, yeah. Mm. What about from your mother? Did you ever feel that sense of support from her?
To some degree, but it was too much.
Too much for,
Too much. Like she would be um, too much worried,
yep,
too much
right,
that instead of comforting me, I would be
concern for
worried
her. Yeah, yeah. Mm.
about her. Yeah.
So that puts you in a tricky situation of wanting it and not wanting it but not wanting her to extend to herself beyond her capacity. So you didn't want her to suffer, yet you wanted it at the same time. Would that be accurate?
Yeah. What was significant about this memory of my cousin, I didn't feel um, that she was doing that because she had to, or
Yeah,
she was too scared, or she was.
yeah, yeah.
It was just a very intuitive movement
Mm,
that's unconditional. It didn't require me
yep.
to be in a different state.
Hmm. And it wasn't beyond her capacity. She 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 wasn't depleted at all by doing it.
No.
Mm. Do you think that this was so significant with your cousin that you measure other people by that same thing? And very few people have the capacity to give you unconditional support. Very, very few people in the world. Everybody's so tied up in their own stuff that they haven't got that capacity. Do you think that's the way it is?
Um,
I suddenly realise I'm talking about myself there with that one. Yeah, I think that is the case for me. Makes me want to cry for them. Sorry, I'm not meaning to take it away from you. So, what's your thought about other people's capacity? in general.
I don't know. My mind is considering it as a problem that I could solve somehow.
And I get the strong feeling, and again, it's just my story, but I get that strong, the idea is loud that says that you seem, you it seems that your desire to change that expresses itself in a sympathetic or empathetic way that it expresses as you wanting to experience what you think they're experiencing. That's connection again, isn't it? That's closeness and connection and empathy and hmm. Again, I just may be pushing my own agenda there, so please don't accept anything unless it feels right for you. I thought I'd got over wanting to fix the world, but it obviously still is there.
How does it feel for you?
Sad. We switch roles here. Again, it's the sadness is because it doesn't need to be that way. So it's so unnecessary. This incredible amount of suffering that's out there. None of it's necessary. And it just comes back to where we started. It just comes back to that idea of death and suffering, anything that we're not actually experiencing, it's unnecessary for us to imagine it and have that suffering ourselves. We create absolutely unnecessary suffering all the time. Yet when I imagine the people who have been displaced in Gaza as an example, I just feel an overwhelming sadness. At the same time, recognizing that that sadness comes from my stories about what they're experiencing, not from their actual experience, from my stories about it. And at a much more personal level, it's the same for what I imagine your suffering is. I want you to be free of your suffering. And is my want, what I want for you, does that have any power? It 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 doesn't. Hmm. It
Is
seems
it
like it
causing you
does.
suffering?
Sorry, because of my.
Is it is it causing you suffering to want to end the suffering?
The answer that jumps up is no. I don't mind my sadness. I don't feel my sadness is not suffering. But is this sensation of aching in my heart, is that suffering? No, I don't mind that either. It's I wouldn't even say it's unpleasant. It's certainly not pleasant, but there is something about it that makes it kind of beautiful. I know that sounds weird, but yeah, that aching is.
Could you say that the suffering is a result of ownership of the suffering?
Yeah, 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 for sure. So presumably, when you ask that question, is that the way it is for you? Is there ownership of that?
It sometimes it shifts, like, but mostly, mostly it's there is a personal feel to it, and like it feels like I have to let go, but holding on is happening somehow.
So letting go would be dropping the ownership, and holding on is retaining it.
It feels like letting go of everything,
Okay, yes.
like completely dropping this world into the void, like
And are there any negative connotations to that?
it triggers guilt and abandonment. Like some part of me wants to feel responsible, or maybe there's something I could do, even if it's pointless. It's not true. Um,
I have an an image, or even it's more of a movie than an image, but of you dropping the world into the void, and the only thing that changes is your connection to it. The world itself continues exactly as it is now in the void, but the connection to you is broken because you let go and dropped it into the void. That's my image, but yours is different because you feel guilt about that, the idea of that. Do you feel that would be the annihilation of the world or something?
my mind make it looks like being a zombie.
You being a zombie.
Yeah.
Okay. Hmm. So would that be accurate then to say that the world is what gives you life, that stops you from being a zombie? So we're talking about the undead when we talk about a zombie, don't we? We're talking about alive but not alive, alive but dead. And without the world, you become a zombie. So the world is what gives you life. Would that be accurate?
It it creates some kind of relationship.
Which is necessary to be alive?
I don't know, but it I can't imagine the lack of this relationship.
Hmm. So when When I saw Bianca, I was reminded of something that both you and her both said once, that there is something fundamentally wrong with the world. And yet here you are saying that it's absolutely necessary.
Well, I wasn't here from the beginning, so I don't know what Ramiz said. What you were saying now, it makes a lot of sense to me. I wanted to say that I am seriously worried about you, but to be blunt, I won't be losing any sleep over it. You know, this don't
Good
you
to
don't
know.
have to worry about me. And about this feeling undead, and it may be very different for me, uh, but and then sorry if it triggers incoming. But when I was in depression, and I have suicidal thoughts. In the end, it felt that I won't commit suicide because it would hurt others, and that I live for others, not in the sense of service, you know, like life of service, doing good deeds, but literally, I live, I breathe, I eat,
Yep.
I earn my livings for others, and it feels undead.
But it doesn't feel undead for you, Ramiz, because you, would you say you carry the world?
No. I wanted to ask Bianca, living for people, doesn't that make you angry? You're muted. We can't hear you.
Yes, it does. Sometimes, but it was also my decision. I couldn't be forced. So it's not being angry at other people, but just about this situation. Like, it can be helped.
I just want to say, for you, Ramiz, and for you, Bianca, I have no concerns for either of you because my imagination says I've witnessed you both of you becoming more alive over the last year. But it could be just my imagination, but I'm enjoying that. And I imagine it will continue.
Bianca, what are you protecting people from?
Oh, pain. I don't know if I turned the mic on or not.
So you make yourself in pain to protect them from pain?
Mm,
Maybe zombies don't feel pain.
if I had mm, the conscious of causing them pain would be painful for me. That is why I'm protecting people from pain.
So it's not altruistic. Are you doing that too, Ramiz? Or maybe yours is altruistic.
No, actually, recently I feel more like I want people to suffer.
So that you want them to suffer so that what?
I don't have to suffer alone.
Connection again.
Maybe if we all are suffering, there is no suffering.
Irene, I see you have your hand up.
Oh, I'm driving, and I wanted to say something several times, but it's hard when I'm driving. I keep getting from that whole need for connection for you, Rami. I'm really just continually getting that little boy whose cousin put her hand on your heart, and how significant that was. And it sounds to me like, and correct me if I'm mistaken, like all the people who couldn't give you the connection that as a little boy that you wanted and needed, is it that you want them to suffer? I was a little confused about that.
I'm not sure if I heard correctly.
And I'm not sure also if I'm breaking up as I speak. So, yes. So when you spoke about your cousin putting her hand on your heart in that moment of spontaneous connection, how significant that was, because it sounded to me, and I don't know your history, that there wasn't much of that going on in your life as a little boy. That made that moment so significant for you. Yes? Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay. And so I'm wondering if that little boy who was alone with his own suffering most of the time, if the desire for others to suffer came out of his own feeling of loneliness with his own suffering and wanting others to feel. And if I understood correctly, your father didn't seem to have that capacity. Is that true?
Yeah, it's true. Wanting people to suffer is a recent thing. I didn't feel it as a child.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. Could you repeat that?
Wanting people to suffer is a recent thing. I didn't feel that when I was a child.
Breaking up on my end, so I can't respond. I feel so frustrated that I can't respond to what you're saying.
Mm.
Can you say it for me, Vince? Maybe.
Sure. So Ramiz said that he did not feel that as a child. He did not want others to suffer as a child. That's only a recent thing that's turned up for him.
Okay, gotcha. So it wasn't when he was a child. It just is more recent.
Mm. I don't see any conflict with that though. That child who wasn't getting the connection mostly is still there in you. I imagine. I don't know if it's true, but I imagine it is.
Me too. And my sense here is that you're wanting to feel the suffering of your friend because he was alone as you were alone as a child.
Yeah,
So
yeah, I
there's
hadn't
that
thought of that.
empathy. Yeah, there's that empathy of, you know what it is to be alone with suffering, don't you? You know what that is to be left alone with your own suffering. And you didn't want that for your friend, is my sense.
Did when you thought of your friend dying, did you did you feel that he was alone?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I wanted to imagine how he felt.
Yes. Yes. Oh, that ties it up, doesn't
You
it?
know,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know what I'm getting, Ramiz, is that little boy in you. It's you meeting yourself in your own suffering alone. It's through your friend, but really it's you meeting your own suffering and not being alone with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
And so it's almost as if that little boy in you is calling out to you to not leave him alone in his own pain and suffering. And you can be there for that little boy when nobody else was there for him. Except for that moment when, again, so magnificently, your cousin put her hand on your heart, that you can put your hand on that little boy's heart now because he needs it from you. Seems to me that going through your friend is a way of getting to yourself, to that little boy. Is that really true at all?
I feel like I can do this to my friend, like placing my hand on his heart while he's dying.
Put your hand on your heart now and just be aware of what feelings come up.
Angry.
Stay with it until you see what's underneath the anger. That will come up.
I stayed with it like a few hours ago and I cried for a long time. And I feel exhausted.
So when you were crying, they were tears of what?
Pain. Feeling alone.
Being alone is such a big thing, isn't it? That's threaded through everything that we've spoken about today.
I left it because the thoughts came out. And well, anything can show up. So I'll ask, do in anger, would you like me to lose sleep worrying over you?
I don't understand.
You know, so I would suffer also.
From what?
Worrying over you. I mean, there are a lot of ways how you can make people suffer.
Would you be suffering?
If I was losing sleep, well,
Would you rather not feel worried?
Yes.
then I would feel bad.
And to turn it around, Bianca, if you knew that he would feel bad about you being worried, would you feel bad about that?
What a vicious circle. Well, I'm just talking about things that show up in anger. Yeah, like in anger, I don't care about that. I will feel bad.
Mm.
I just go with anger.
Yeah, anger is directed outwards usually, isn't it? Carsten, do feel free to join in, but always talk about yourself. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
I was thinking about anger now. When I have a lot of anger, sometimes or I get triggered and I can feel that irritation, hot anger outward. But towards myself, it's not that hot anger in a way. It's more like, I guess I am angry at myself, but it's not like that hot anger outwards. It's more like giving up or guilt, or it's blaming outwards is kind of hot. Blaming inwards is kind of, it has a different feeling.
Mm-hmm.
The blaming inward and the blaming outward for me.
Mm.
Blaming outward is often irritated first, and like don't get usually very express it a lot. I'm more of this passive, irritated, and I can feel resentment, but it's kind of a hot feeling, irritated outward, but inward it's more like a depressive feeling or something, or guilt depressive way. Yeah, so I feel that there's a difference when blaming goes outward or when blaming goes inwards towards myself.
Mm. Mm.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking about when we were talking about
Yeah,
that
yeah,
now.
yeah. It's a good point. What for you, Ramiz? Is that anger? Is that hot anger, outward anger, or inward anger?
It's I don't feel it has a direction.
Mm.
It can be inward, can be outward, but mostly it's just everywhere.
Just there, yeah. And does it feel hot or something else?
It feels very hot.
So if you were to give it a color, it would be red.
Yeah. I can, in my dreams, I can express anger in a clean way that feels good. I can't express it in the same way of being awake.
So when you said, I got hung up on the word express it, when you said express it. So express is to put out there, to get it out. Express is to get it out. I don't know if that's part of your anger or not, but the impression I got with your anger is that it's much more like a big cloud that hangs over everything and it doesn't have a direction. But still, expressing it is putting it outside of you.
Yeah, the feeling of anger is like boiling here, and when it expressed is directed outward. Yeah.
Are you relating to this, Lou?
I am, very much so. I haven't shared for a little while. I've been in a quite depressed place, actually, and but something you were talking about before, I had a little realization that it's probably the first time in my life that I've been really able to feel the depression, whatever that is. I mean, it came in many forms. It's a kind of an umbrella term, isn't it? But it came with the typical things which I've had throughout my life. And the difference being was the conscious, I was quite conscious of the depression and the thoughts and the feelings, and especially the internal sensations that were going on. As a child, when I was depressed, I think the first time I was depressed when I was 16, and I was suicidal. I just wanted to, didn't want to be here. But this, just going through that recently, like there's an underlying feeling that I was okay, like it was really okay. And the other thing was that it was going to pass, which in younger times, I just, that it's the end. It's like, you don't know, it's going to pass. And just watching the thoughts, which are always different. There was nothing new coming through. And just feeling the sensations. And since that, I've started some work on the inner child, and looked at the dysfunction of family history and stuff like that, and just exactly what we were talking about before. I don't remember a particularly happy childhood. I remember lying on my bed crying many, many times. But kind of thought that was normal. Like there's a normalization that I'm beginning to unravel, that I thought everybody did that. I thought that was the same for everybody. And it's this realization of some things that happened as a child weren't normal, or weren't loving, or I kind of thought that some of those things were an expression of love. And what that's brought is some, and when Ramiz said that he didn't used to feel like, what did he say? He said he didn't used to want people to suffer, but now he does. And this is the same with with the family situation, I find it very difficult to speak to my parents because, you know, I was hit as a child and I was left to cry because I couldn't tell them why I was upset. It's very funny. But I know that there's anger there. But as an adult, I know that it wasn't, you know, I like this part of me. It's like a split. Like part of me knows that they just did the best, and then this part of me feels really angry. So when I'm actually trying to have a conversation, I can't manage it more than a minute. And it's like something else comes up. It's like it was in my drinking days. Like you just couldn't not have a drink, and it's like this behavior just comes up, and so I try and get off the phone as quick as possible. But I don't feel like that's going to be there for long. I do have little pockets of compassion, and it's usually when I'm just getting on with my day. Like there'll be little, you know, they're elderly, they did the best they could, and all those things. Just trying to relate it back to what you were talking about. Anger. I have a real, so for the last week, I've had a real, it's like a ball of fire in my chest. And it's really, really deep. And I don't know what it is. I know it's a sensation. I'm not particularly frightened of it. It shimmers and I suppose it feels a little bit like anxiety, but I do wonder when you were just talking about fear, it kind of really started making itself known. I suppose because I've been on these meetings that I'm really, really aware of sensations much more than I ever was before. But I was doing some meditation the other day and it was just as clear as day, like it just popped into my head. It was as clear as day that the sensations and the thoughts that go with them are not, that, you know, they've got a little bit of meaning maybe, but they're not really connected. It was really clear. It was really clear. And that's the same with this ball. It keeps coming up. It came up today when I was in a very noisy, there was a lot of children screaming and shouting, and I got really, this thing just started getting really, it was almost like anxiety. And I couldn't figure out why I was so heightened in, yeah, because I was never allowed to get that loud. I was told to shush and be quiet or go to my room. Anyway, that's just what's been going on recently.
Yeah. So it's just staying with it and not trying to figure it out. It will reveal itself. And in fact, it did there a little bit. You just said it. It seemed to me that what you were saying, that you were never allowed to get that loud, and here you were experiencing that loudness. So obviously there was trouble brewing about that. Yeah. So yeah, it's just don't try to figure it out. Just stay with it, and it will reveal itself or not. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing was the depression. I got to the point where I just held my hands up and said, whatever. It was abandonment. It was everything mixed in this pot together, and it didn't want to be here. I just went, well, if that's the way it is, that's the way it is. It literally, I just didn't. The suffering was I don't know what it was. It just came to just do your worst, whatever. I don't know if it was surrender or if it was giving up. I have no idea, but I just didn't. I couldn't bear to have that mental suffering anymore. I just did. And so I thought, well, maybe if I just decide that this is what it's going to be, this is it. But it wasn't a conscious decision. It's like, well, okay, it's not going to stop wanting it to be different, stop wanting it to change. Yeah, there's a lot of things changed, like in this life, like everyone kind of, one of my last year of drinking, everyone left. And yeah, a lot of things have gone. So it's kind of a mix of that. It's just a lot of things mixed in. Yeah, it's very confusing. Yeah.
The confusion is only there because there's that inclination to want to understand, to want to know about. But you also know, it seems to me that you also know that that's just the mind wanting some kind of satisfaction, that by simply accepting it. So when you said giving up, it was like there was an acceptance there that that's all that's required. Required's probably not the right word, but if there is acceptance, then things will change. Understanding might turn up. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's almost like it had nowhere else to go. I had to do that. I couldn't couldn't do anything else. Yeah.
Well, that was a great corner to be put in, wasn't it?
Yeah. And the suffering is and then it, I don't know, just the next day things turned around, just looked brighter and hopeful. And that's when we're talking about suffering, like, do we want suffering or do we not want suffering? The suffering is what allows us to have a more, from my perspective, has more ability to have that conscious insight to what's going on, because without that suffering, I would never have got to where I was, really. Yeah.
Yeah, so I hadn't thought of that one. So you could say that the suffering turns your focus inward.
Yeah, compared to how it used to be when it was blame. I'd be looking outside to get something to feel better. But you're right, yeah. So this time it's just more conscious look into what thoughts were coming, and just recognizing that each one was just, it had no legs. It had nothing to stand on. Yeah.
So I hadn't thought of that before, but now it seems really clear to me that suffering can have a good effect. Yeah.
Well, I think that's from coming to these meetings, when that visceral sensation of uncomfortableness happens, that's a natural place now to go, is to go and have a look what's going on inside. Whereas a lot of the other therapies and all kinds of stuff, most of my life, is all head. It's all kind of, mind. And it's not being afraid to look at those sensations, like this ball of fire, whatever's going on in here, that would have terrified me at some point. And sometimes it's really strong, and it's, you know, becoming a heart attack. But I know I'm not. It's something happening. Yeah. So
yeah, it's good, isn't it? And isn't it amazing how this just keeps on happening until eventually one day it
still
it's not
happens.
as much. Yeah, well, it'll still happen, but not as much, you know, or differently. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And that's what I think that's when when I was in that depth of it, I just knew, I knew that this is another round.
Mm.
I always wondered what this site, there's like a cyclical up and down that has always been like this, you know, depression and up and depression, and but what seems to happen now is much more longer periods of just contentment, peace,
Yeah, in between those.
clarity. Yeah. And then it either dips or, you know, I don't go too high anymore, but it's just that peace is just much longer lasting. Yeah, suffering. Yeah, for me, the suffering, I know it's there to show me something.
Yeah, yeah, good.
Mm.
When
And there you go.
when I was crying a while ago, and there was too much energy in this area, and there was a moment where it's like the energy disappeared somehow, like it felt or expanded and felt light, and it made me realize how much density there was, even more than I could. You know, it's like gravity. You're used to gravity, but and suddenly there's no gravity, and then there's gravity, and you recognize the difference.
Mm. Mm.
And I can feel it now even more heavy than it was before.
Mm. Yeah, when you get used to stuff, it's like it's almost not there. It's just there because you're used to it. But take it away, and then have it back, and it's suddenly it's very, very intense. Yeah.
I wanted to just related to something that Ramiz said about his cousin. I didn't come from a particularly huggy family, but I always remember a time very similar to what we just talked about. Is when I was having my first child. He was born at 24 weeks, so it was a bit of a shock to be going into labor. Yeah, almost 2 months early, and I was quite scared. Well, I was very scared because I didn't know what was going on. I wasn't prepared. But and it was a very dark room. It was midnight, and my husband was asleep in the chair next door, and I just had worse things, scenarios going on. And this nurse, this lovely nurse, didn't know her from anyone, but she came and sat on the bed, and she took her left hand and she held my foot, and I can still feel it now. And it was warm, and it was just so comforting, and it's always stood out as that. Yeah, I didn't know what it was, but there was something there that was bringing some comfort through
Mm.
somebody else. But and she probably didn't know what she was doing. She probably just, you know, was being compassionate and doing her job. But it was
Yeah.
yeah.
And for a moment, your heart was in your foot.
Yeah. 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 And so that
And isn't it amazing that you can still feel it?
I can
Wow.
still feel it.
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
still feel it. Yeah, still feel it. Yeah.
Can you still feel your cousin's hand on your heart, Ramiz?
Yeah, when sometimes I'm able to feel it, and it makes me sad.
Oh, does that make you sad, Lou, when you feel that?
No, it gives me comfort.
Right.
Mm.
So I presume, Ramiz, that the sadness is that it's no longer there. But when you feel it,
I
it is
think
there. Yeah.
it is comfort, but comfort and sad at the same time.
Can you explain? Do you have a story about why sad?
It's like some pain in me being recognized, felt.
So did I hear you right? Did you say that that feeling recognized was painful?
No, the pain is recognized.
Oh, the pain is recognized. Okay, yeah, yeah, I got that one wrong. Yeah. So the sadness is about the pain that's there.
I don't know.
Mm,
It feels right. It doesn't. I don't feel like it needs explanation.
mm. Mm.
Maybe he said that it's almost the only moment that I felt this way when I was a child.
So would you say that there somewhere in there is a story that how you felt this feeling should be much more accessible, should happen much more frequently, even all the time?
Why not?
Yeah, of course. Why
It
not?
wasn't. It wasn't extraordinary. It was very simple
Yeah.
moment.
Very simple, but very profound as well. Yeah, yeah. Cool. So I now remember you touching your grandmother when she was having pain with her leg. Would you say that you were doing for her what your cousin did for you when you touched her?
I didn't think about it at the time. It was just,
Yeah, spontaneous,
uh,
sure. Yeah.
yeah,
But looking back at it now, would you say that you were wanting for your grandmother what you got from your cousin?
yeah.
Would you go as far as to say that you would like that for the whole world, for everybody?
I suppose, yeah, but
At the same time, you wouldn't mind if they suffered a bit.
no, it's not like that.
No.
It feels pointless, or not pointless, not enough. Like, how much do I need to touch my grandma leg to make her feel better?
Hmm.
How much does this need to happen in the universe, in every corner?
Hmm. Very, very relevant questions. I mean, maybe you touched your grandmother and she didn't even feel your touch. Or maybe she did. Maybe it evoked in her a feeling that she felt was too much. Or maybe she was totally disengaged and didn't feel it at all. Who knows? Did she respond in a way that showed you what she felt?
She was thanking me for touching her leg.
Yep. So she
She was
obviously did feel
acknowledging.
and appreciate it. Yes. Yeah. Mm. Did you feel grateful that you were able to give her that offering?
No,
Do you remember what you felt when she thanked you?
nothing specific.
Mm. Are you relating to any of this, Maya?
I'm trying to
Oh, you broke up a
get
little.
up.
Seems like your internet's not good. You broke up a lot then.
Mike this evening.
No, we didn't get any of that. Maybe if you jump off and back on again, it might get a better connection. Hmm. Is A for Alison? Yeah, I invite you to be involved. Just talk about yourself. Well, let's hope this is a better connection.
Oh, I didn't even get your videos.
Yeah,
Okay.
it doesn't seem any better.
You- Well, I'm trying to catch up, and the only thing I got was this touch. I think I missed Rami's story.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
Louise telling that she's feeling some stuff after many years.
Hmm.
I
Maybe
do
you could try.
recognize it.
Maybe you could try to turn off the video.
Sorry?
If you turn off your video, we might get a better hear you better. You're breaking up still. So talk now. I heard you say you didn't get
Now?
Ramiz's story.
Yeah, but I could relate to what Louise said about feeling someone's touch after many years.
Hmm.
Because I think I also had, can I can feel people after many, or even eyes of people many years ago, still here somehow.
Mhm. Still breaking up. Yeah.
I can replay them in my head. Yeah. Sorry, I'm listening to the day more.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. It's frustrating when this happens, isn't it? Mm. Oh, A is for Andre.
Yes. Or I can try a little bit later. I can try a
Sure. Yeah. 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 Internet's weird like that. You can have it really bad and then it can come good. Mm. So were you relating to anything, Andre?
No, I'm like, I think I'm, um, it's almost like there's something in me that doesn't support the sort of general mood, and it feels a little more on the sort of a funerally side, the sort of the general. It's like it's too sad for me. It's too dark. It's too slow. It's um too swampy, you know, too
Mm. Mm.
but then I also realized that I this because I'm just being grumpy today and angry and I am not about touching other people's feet. I'm like more about seeing that I don't, for some reason I don't want to, like I don't
Mm.
want to be that loving
Yep. Yep. So
whatever.
would you go as far as to say you prefer to stick pins in their feet?
Yeah, and see what happens. More like not to cause them pain, but to shake them up, shake them off, shake them out of the whatever sad, mournful, martyress. I don't know if it's an adjective. A thing that is being played, like, because I am something. Well, something also happened to me, and I noticed that I've been angry with my sister, and I've been angry with my brother, and I've been angry um with I don't know, with certain ways that people express themselves, and I think one of them being sadness. And I did recognize one thing that Ramiz, I think, said. He and he when he was talking about his grandmother and like there's no telling how much of the holding of her feet you have to do in order for her to be, to be what, if there's an agenda, then to achieve that goal or to make her happy, basically, right? And I have that too. Like I recognize that there's still a belief in me that I am responsible for women's happiness, and because I'm not able to deliver that, I feel guilty. And that thing, I don't like it, but it's like it seems to run its own sort of show. I don't really have much. Uh, it's almost like engraved in my body somehow that
Mm.
that
Mm.
that if I touch that string, I can feel my body going into, oh, you're a piece of shit. You're not able to, because of you, women are sad, right? And then obviously I'm talking about the women that I have that I've come across in my life, and then I realize it's funny, but my body doesn't think that way.
Yeah.
My
Yeah.
body
Yeah.
actually believes that it is because of me,
Mm.
or because of whatever I did or I didn't, and it's not like if I try to go to the other extreme or to the other end of saying like fuck you, I have nothing to do with your happiness. It doesn't work that way. It becomes, it's not like I don't have the guilt anymore. It's more like I am denying guilt,
Yeah,
and I'm
yeah.
rebelling against guilt. So it's yeah.
So what I
I don't
find
really.
interesting,
Mm.
what I found interesting in what you were saying was that both in Louise's uh, case and in Ramiz's case, that touching brought a really active, positive feeling of something good, and you're not seeing that part. You're just seeing that part that says, "Oh, you're responsible for making them feel good."
No, it's more like I am not. Yeah, I don't see that. I don't see that. I only see them being manipulated into touching other people's whatever feet. And that's the part that triggers me. The
Mm.
touching itself is not a problem. The
Yeah, yeah.
the
The requirement is, yeah,
yeah, the kind of requirement. If it and also, I think what happened to me is that I have. I mean, I don't know. I've been sort of doing this to my wife, to people around me. Have been nice, and it's not like I didn't enjoy it. I did,
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
now the pendulum is going the other way, where I somehow I'm like I'm fed up with it and I don't want to
Yeah,
do
yeah,
it
sure,
anymore.
yeah. Would this might be a big jump, but would you go as far as to say that as a kid you felt responsible for your mother's happiness?
Oh yeah, well, that was pretty much the case. I mean, if you as a child you run away because you're a child and do your childish, child sort of kid stuff, right?
Yep.
Childish stuff, whatever. You don't think about adults. You don't think about the consequences because you're a child. And then you come back and your mom finds you and she's so sad. She's almost destroyed because of your little shenanigan, which is not a shenanigan. It's just
Just a kid.
you're
Yeah, yeah,
just a kid. Yeah, yeah. And I think a few of those turn into, oh, I if I do that, my mom is really sad.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
shouldn't do that. I shouldn't be like that. I shouldn't. And then, I mean, all of a sudden, I realized that I put these restraining orders on myself, like limitations,
Yeah, yeah.
and when I hit them in my life, I'm immediately triggered. And I just want to be, and I'm still I think I'm trying to find a kind of environment where I am able to do that,
Yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
reclaim some of that lost
Yeah,
territory.
yeah, 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 yeah. You still want to be a spontaneous kid.
Yeah, yeah, I want to be a spontaneous kid, and I still probably want to do stuff without having to care about um, consequences so much.
Mm. But
I kind
consequences
of,
are everywhere, eh?
yeah, that's true, but and it does sound like a utopia in a way because as an adult, I understand there's no such thing like, yeah, not like not caring about consequences um unless you just, I don't know. I'm thinking about reliving some of the teenager things in my life, like throwing garbage in the street, but there's part of me that doesn't want to do it anymore because I don't think it's good for the planet or for myself or for anyone. And I kind of, and I am sad and angry about not, like, there's a
Not
part of
being,
me that thinks that probably I will never be able to do that again.
yeah,
Or
yeah.
not, yeah, I only did it like for a few times when I was a kid, And then my mom is like, slap on your wrist. No,
Yeah,
don't.
yeah. So that killed spontaneity for you.
Yeah, and it kills my creativity, I suppose, as well, because I think so fucking much about what other people will think or respond or react, or am I gonna go to jail, or will my wife approve of it or not? There's so much like what if that I just choke on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
But I like that energy. Actually, this to me it sounds like this kind of rebellion. It's not really. I mean, it is rebellion, but it seems so normal, and I think it's rebellion in a good way because the world will always kind of push you back, right? But not because you're bad or because you're doing something wrong, but because it just wants you to kind of, I don't know, train you in a way. Like you do this, and then the world is like, oh, this is bad, and then you're like, no, this is not bad, this is good, and then you push back, and then the world pushes back, and you push back, and but it's like it's a game. It's not like you want to destroy the world or the world doesn't want you to be spontaneous. It's just it's like my wife says, she's a good singer, but when I sing, sometimes I sing in languages I don't speak, um, and I just love it. I just love singing in Chinese, which is not Chinese. It's just gibberish,
Yeah,
but sounds like
yeah,
Chinese, or French, or Spanish, or any. Well, I just follow the structure. And when I
yeah,
do that,
yeah.
she's like, stop that. And I'm like, why? And she said, well, because you don't know the words, or you don't speak the language. And I'm like, so? And she says, well, learn the words, and only then you can do it. And I'm like, but this is me, blah, this is my creativity, this is like, I want to do this, I want to be this imperfect whatever. um it's not a sinner, but well, who, yeah, whatever. And she's like, and then I get offended by when she says don't do that, because I'm like, there's nothing wrong with it. There's no harm. And I mean, recently she just said you can do it, but while I'm not around, or give me a heads up so that I can put my noiseless whatever earpieces in, and then you can do your thing.
You can be
and,
stupid.
and you can be stupid, yeah. And but to be honest, this is not stupid. I think
Yeah. It's being
when I when
creative,
I
isn't it? Being
yeah when I
spontaneous and creative. Yeah.
yeah because when I do it, it sounds it's if there's no story behind it, it's just the way things are at the moment. It's just like, you can hear the clock ticking. You don't say, oh, it's a stupid ticking, it's just ticking, right? I mean, it's just
Hmm.
um
Yeah.
yeah. I get all excited talking about this. I don't know. So
I like it. Mm.
yeah, now we can go back to I guess to
Yeah.
sad stuff if you want
Now,
to.
now I want to hear you sing in Chinese. That's not Chinese.
No, but it's because when you make it public, it's so easy to offend someone. Probably
Okay.
that.
Oh,
I
okay.
don't
Yeah,
know.
I guess it could be seen that way too. Yeah. No, I wouldn't see it that way though. Yeah.
No, I wouldn't either. Like if someone made fun of my language or my accent, yeah, I'd probably be. Well, it depends, but most
Oh,
likely,
no.
I'd,
Yeah.
I'd be
No, I
quiet.
tell you, if I listen to Chinese people talking, I go, you know what? I really would love to talk that language because I like their energy when they talk. It feels really good, and I can't do it. Could pretend perhaps, but I love it. There's a big attraction to doing it. It's like when I see
Mhm.
people playing the piano in a really spontaneous way. I just ache to want to be able to do that myself. That's just, yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, if it's the same as that. Mm.
Yeah, but even if
Even,
you like, you don't have to be perfect. You just want to be with them. You
yeah, yeah.
wanna, and then it doesn't mean you're singing in Chinese. It means you're singing in whatever. You're just being,
You're playing with
you're
that
you're
that
dancing your
feeling of,
dance.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And to you, it's like, remember when we were kids, we would invent language. which would sound like gibberish before we were able to write, and then we would sort of write it down, but then it just looks like, you know, some scribbles and doodles. It's not a language, but for a
Yeah.
child, it is a language. It is as much real as any other language, and there's nothing wrong with it. I mean, I know you cannot convey much knowledge to other children with that kind of language, but then it doesn't really matter because that's
Yeah, it
there's
is what it is. Yeah.
you're doing it for the sake of doing it, not for the sake of, you know, passing
Yeah.
on your wisdom onto other kids or something.
Yeah. It's an experience. Yeah.
Yeah. And all of it is experience, but then some experiences, they, you know, they make other people cringe and crumble and oh, don't do that. Oh, it doesn't. What are you doing? You're smelling your fingers. Don't do it. You know, and it's just there's so much. Yeah, and I'm probably doing that too, but in the ways that I'm not aware right now of. But I also do that. Yeah.
Mm.
Oh, so yeah, thank you for giving me this opportunity to vent it out.
You're welcome. Uh, Thank you for the
Allison,
feeling that I got listening to that. That was great. Yeah.
Allison is done speaking. Yeah, you called me Allison. People are leaving. See what happens?
Not because of you. Well, maybe. Maybe people can't bear you.
Not him again. Narcissistic
Yeah.
fool.
I had a friend who was an attraction of every party when he pretended to speak languages. Yeah, just saying sounds, but it sounded like Dutch, but he didn't know Dutch at all. And it was so funny when someone was when someone fell for it. Like a girl, like, oh, I only know a little bit of Dutch. I can't converse with you. And I also I share this feeling about what I do to help people is not enough. I think that for me it's not guilt but shame that I am this way, not of my fault, and I feel helpless. And I think this
That's
is
an interesting one. You say although you can't help it, you still feel shame. You know, I would imagine that shame involves feeling.
it involves feeling helpless. That I
Yes. Yeah.
care about something and I can't do anything about
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
And because of that, I hated metta meditation.
Mm.
But I also had one healing experience that I want to share. When my grandmother was ill and in hospital, and I was coming to her every day, but I wasn't talking with her because I can do small talk, and so I was just bringing her things, massaging her back, and I was ashamed that I can't well, you know, like lighten up her mood with talking,
Mm.
and that I just sit there reading a book. But after some time, my grandmother said, I like it so much when you come, because when your cousin comes, she talks so much, and I'm too tired to engage in
Yeah.
conversations.
So did that
And I was
change
like,
for you?
wow.
Yeah, big time. Yeah. So what you were doing was exactly what she wanted. And did that change it for you when she said that? Did the shame go?
Yeah, it was so that I don't know what is helping and what is not
And
helping, and it's just my
yeah,
imagination and what people told
yeah,
me what I
yeah,
should do. It's no knowing.
yeah. And isn't that the case for everybody all the time? We don't actually ever know, really. I mean, we don't even know for ourselves most of the time, so how could we possibly know for somebody else? Yeah. So does that make it obvious that when you feel shame, it's not about what is actual, it's only about what you imagine is actual?
I don't know how
Yeah,
my
yeah.
connection is. My connection better now?
It does sound better, yeah.
Well, how you never know what you do. Well, I really think I'm the shittiest teacher in the world. I really do think that. But then, well, right when I was lying in bed sick, I got an email from a student from 10 years ago, and she said something like, "You changed my life." This is an email that every teacher gets maybe once or twice in a career. And I still think I'm the shittiest teacher. I think they're bored to death with me. But I know that I don't know, because I don't know what they think when they sit there.
Exactly, yeah. And our world is developed such that we inhibit the telling of what's going on. We don't say, you have to guess all the time, yeah. Well, let me tell you, I love to hear you talk. There's something about the way you present things that I really like. It really makes me feel good.
Thank you, but don't praise me, please.
I'm not praising you, I'm describing my experience. You can take it as a compliment or not, but I am just describing what my experience with you is.
Thanks. Thanks.
I've yet to work out what it is that I enjoy so much about your, somebody said that you have a good structured mind, that your way you approach things is in a structure, and that's possibly part of it. But I even like the sound of your voice. Yeah.
Thanks. And I have the feeling, I don't know now, I have the feeling I do speak at least fluently, at least 5 languages. I have the feeling when I come to this group, I forget everything I know about English. I have the feeling that I mumble and stumble and
Mm. That's not
I
how I
feel
see
that,
it. Yeah.
and I live with it.
Mm. I always hear you being very clear about what you are expressing. Yeah.
Thanks. And when we're at it, I have another question. You know, my problem when I'm in the class, when I'm in the classroom, before my problem was before going into class. Then I somehow resolved it. It's okay, me going into class. Then being in the class is something that I try to resolve now. But coming out of the class, I so often have the feeling that I made such a fool of myself. They all think I'm an idiot and everything. And sometimes I have the same feeling after this group.
Oh, that really
And I really
surprises
feel
me. Yeah.
rubbish. If this is not true, then I really have something to work on, another topic to work on.
I can't speak for everybody, but I have heard two other people from in my memory comment that they like to hear you talk. And there's three of us at least that feel good about it. I mean, of course you're going to get students in particular. We can have this story that there are students that are going to be bored no matter what goes on because they're not engaged. That's just, you know, you can't, for a moment, you cannot take responsibility for how other people relate to you. There's just too many conditions involved. Their whole history is involved. I mean, maybe they're in the class not because they want to be, but because they have to be, and so consequently they're not engaged. Or who knows? Who knows? But if I had a choice of a teacher, I would choose you.
Yes, this is maybe the reason they choose me for their mentor and supervisor for BAs and MAs and PhDs, and I have 6 PhDs behind me. So
Yep, yep. And they choose you, I imagine, not because not not for reasons that they can get through easily or whatever, but rather because they find their interaction with you more pleasant. And maybe that's in comparison with other teachers, or maybe it's just pleasant. Who knows? Yeah.
yeah, for some of them for sure. Some of them for sure. I also sometimes, I told you already, I have colleagues who are really rude, and I think in another country, for example, I'm in the UK now, and my daughter is studying here. But my colleagues in Croatia, they still behave like it's Austrian-Hungarian Empire, and they are old professors, and they have all the rights in the world to belittle anyone however they want.
Yep, yep.
And they are really, well, I have students coming into tears to me for comfort.
Mm.
It's not very pleasant because I have to somehow, I'm standing against my colleagues at that moment, so it's not a good position for me, and I try to be diplomatic. I'm not talented for that, but I try.
Yep, yep. Maybe
But
there's some skill you can learn, and that is that you don't need to say anything about your colleagues. You just need to inquire of the upset student what they are experiencing. And if
yes,
by the
yeah.
time they've explained it to you and so on, it's changed. Right. Now, another thing that comes to mind for me is that those people who behave like they are superior or entitled or whatever it is, they're people with a very low self-esteem, and that's an act to make them feel like they're okay. This is my story, and I use that to forgive idiots in the world for being the way they are.
Maybe they're just not saying it out loud, not to them and not to the others, what I'm saying to me, that I'm the shittiest teacher in the world.
Mm.
You know, I've heard once, and I think it's very true, that about parents. The role of the parent is to be boring because it's the stability, giving the
Yes.
foundations.
Like, I'm your parent and I'm your only parent. Others can be your friends. You only have me and maybe another as a parent, but all the other people in the world can be your friends.
I guess being boring is sustainable.
Somehow I think now that I have a totally distorted picture of myself, which is fine. Okay, I'll work with it.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Well, my experience says the more you know about yourself, the more you realize you don't know about yourself. So in the end, right, the 10th feta is coming to the realization that you know nothing. And the biggest mystery is ourself. So it's not a case of getting better and better at learning about ourselves. It's a case of just noticing what arises. And I mean by what arises, not why or how, but what. And that changes everything. We can see our responses to things, and that seeing allows it to evolve. But there's no end point. There's no stopping anywhere. It's a constant movement. How I see myself. I mean, I was, and I presume there still is, although I don't see much evidence of it these days, that I was a people pleaser. I really wanted to be liked by people because I felt that I was inadequate or something. And I went round for a long time believing that if they really knew me, they would like me. And I reached a point where it's not that I don't care, but that I realise that I have no control over myself, let alone over how other people see me. So if they don't like me, well, so be it. If they do like me, it doesn't make me feel great. It doesn't. I don't get a big kick out of it. It's just so be it. But it's much more pleasant so be it than if they don't like me. So there's just that thing, yeah. So how they see me, that's not up to me. That's because they're all seeing me through the filter of their own experience all the time.
Yeah.
So it's not possible for you to be a good teacher or a shitty teacher. There is just the facts involved. And if you relax, if it's possible that you can relax and be spontaneous, then you will be closer to what you actually are. That's a bit funny, that one, but yeah, you'll right, well, put it another way. The more you try to be something, the more distorted things become.
Mm.
So the opposite can be true in that if you're relaxed and spontaneous, then you're the most authentic that you can be.
Well, I think I'm on this way of I was also a people pleaser because I was an outcast in the primary school, from primary school. And I remember how I tried to be funny, for example, to be more liked or something. It didn't help. It never helped. They still have me on the side. The same class has me on the side. When we have a reunion, I'm overlooked always somehow. But okay, I'm fine. And now I think it's less. I'm less so. I'm more like I don't give a damn what other people think. Like Andrea said, what will other people say? I was brought up in with this sentence. What will other people say? What will our neighbors say? This is so okay.
Yes.
I don't care what my neighbors will say. I don't really care. And so in the last, I don't know how much time, I stopped caring that much what my students say, because it was eating me from inside. Whether I'm doing well or not or something, I don't care anymore. I'm too tired to care. So I found myself more than once authentic in the class, and then I start joking, and then I think, oh, is it appropriate? Did I go too far? I mean, I'm not saying some things, I don't know, I just joke like that. And I think it will be like that from now on, just for me to be able to survive and not to think what other people say or what other people think. I'm too tired to care.
Well, that's a good place to be, but well, the consequences of that is good. But yeah.
You know what I thought? I thought I should get myself the same jacket as Melania Trump with what did she have on her back? I don't care, do you, or something. I need this jacket. I'd like Melania Trump, but I will get myself the jacket. Or write on the jacket. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, there's another. There you go.
You still care so much about your students, but there is a healthy level of care.
I'm falling apart now.
Falling apart?
Falling apart because really I'm not able to think what they think about me anymore. And there are other things, the family and everything, so there's so much that, okay, I will be relaxed because I cannot hold myself together anymore. But this is also not bad. Nothing is bad. Nothing is bad. Bad or good, it's just a judgment of situations.
Yep, well said.
I just want to hug you.
I love to teach cognitive linguistics when I have this subject. This is where I sneak into them these things, like something is good or bad, it's your judgment. If something is in front or behind, it depends on how you're turned towards what and everything, and they just look, oh.
Yeah, good stuff. This stuff permeates everything. Yeah. I don't know if that was good English. Maybe I should say permeates through everything. I don't know. I don't care. You know what I mean? Yeah.
And I feel like an idiot after every meeting.
Then it's okay. It's okay to feel like an idiot after every meeting.
Oh, You know what? When I wind up a meeting, which I am going to do soon, when I wind up a meeting, I've almost am overwhelmed with appreciation for this. I don't know how many meetings I've had. This must be 120 or 130. I don't know how many meetings I've had. Every single one of them has been a good meeting, and I just when I wind it up, I just feel overwhelmed with the appreciation of how great it's been. You know, that incredible intimacy, that amazing contact that goes on. You know, that just affects me. And yet then I walk out of here, and I don't even think about it anymore. Hardly ever does it come back in my thoughts about that. You know, I don't know what that means. It just, if anything, it's just there. Yeah. I mean, life is so busy out there. When I get up from here and go out, there is going to be 1,000 things to do, and that's where my focus is, I guess. Mm.
Can I say two more things? I'll be short. The first one, I wanted to say it before, but I didn't know if it was appropriate. When people talk here, there are moments when I have the feeling that if we were in person and face to face now, I would hug them.
Oh, me too. Yes.
It
Yeah.
happens often,
Yeah.
actually. And the other thing for Andre from today, he's singing in languages and no languages and being silly. It's so childishly innocent and so beautiful, and I would like him to know
Yes.
we are silly at our house. It's a part of our life. We are allowed to be anything, and this is why I love my marriage. So different than my home with my parents. We are
Yes.
allowed to be us, and we are as silly and dumb and anything.
It's spontaneous and yeah, beautiful. Yeah. Mm. Okay, so Andre just left.
Hope you heard this.
Okay, yeah. Well, if we're going to keep talking here, I'm going to start crying. So I, that's okay too. All right, but it is time to go. Yeah. So again,
Louise,
thank you, everybody.
Louise
Thanks,
wants to
everyone.
say.
Say, Bianca, I didn't get that.
I thought Louise wanted to say something.
No, I was just saying goodbye to everyone. Thank you. Thanks, Vince. Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you, everybody. Yeah.
Bye-bye.